What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's a very early episode of the Countdown to the Geekcast. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me as always, my partner in crime, the one and only Matty B.
Yeah, and it's so early. I haven't. I'm not gonna crack a beer this early, but I certainly would. And honestly, I probably could. It is Black Wednesday, folks. Don't forget to get blackout drunk tonight and ready for the feast tomorrow.
Is that is that the tradition? I'm not familiar with that one.
Black Wednesday,
Also,
yeah, it's the. I think it's the biggest drinking night of the year.
Well, it's the biggest bar night of the year for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
oh wow, had no idea. All right, and joining us once again, you know him as Daniel from Legacy of Nerds. What's going on, Dan?
Going good.
I'm doing my best Luthen impression right now. If you can check that out, got the hood on, all stream, and this is going to be our Andor finale discussion, our instant take. Let's put it that way. Our Andor instant take. The finale just dropped today. If you haven't seen it, spoiler warning. I'll just start out by saying spoiler warning right now. But we'll get into episode 11 real quick, and then we're gonna jump into finale, episode 12. Yeah. So fantastic season so far. We've all been enjoying majority of it, um, and it's come to a very interesting conclusion. Although, let's start off with just general thoughts. Can we do that first? Maddie B, your general thoughts about episode 12, Rick's Road.
It was fine. It didn't leave me with anything more, and it didn't take anything away from me either. I mean, it was good. It was plenty fine. The money was very well spent as far as production goes and CG. Um, and it was only going to be so climactic because we know, again, it's kind of like the Kenobi series where we kind of know where it's going to end up. There's only so much you can really build, and they did do some good stuff throughout the series with the prison scene. Sort of inspiring rebellion there at the end. A very nice, beautiful speech at the end of the finale. Overall, it's not bad at all. I would give it probably a 7.8 out of 10.
Interesting. Very nice. Very nice. Uh, Daniel, you've just seen the episode. This is sort of your instant reaction to it. What are your general feelings about the finale?
Putting it simply, I feel that it felt more like a mid-season finale more
Ooh.
than a season finale. Definitely left me wanting more, and I don't think I got the big like ending for season finales like we kind of have been getting used to. So, I felt like we were leaving off in the middle of a season.
Ooh, I like that. I like that actually. Hot take by Dan. And I'm going to agree in a lot of ways. There was a lot of elements that was interesting or that I liked about it. The drama was sort of focused elsewhere, but not so much with our main character, and that was different. It felt unsatisfying that our main character, our lead of the show, wasn't doing a whole lot. But there might be reasons for that. There might be elements. There might be um, arcs that are born out of this sort of conflict that we watched on Ferrix. But let's get into the summary right now. So, going to drop episode 12 summary, and I'll also talk about something that happened in episode 11 because it was just so damn cool. So, episode 11, Daughter of Ferrix. The episode ends with Cassian making a call home and learning that his mother, Marva, had passed. He is likely to return, but little does he know what awaits him. On his way out, Luthen gets stopped by an Imperial patrol, but is able to disable their tractor beam and make quick work with their TIE fighters. Episode 12, Rick's Road. Cassian returns home. The ISB has spies on Mon Mothma. That was interesting. Marvel's funeral turns into an all out brawl between Ferrix and the Empire. Cassian saves Bix and confronts Luthen on his ship. The episode ends with a cutscene. What many theorized ended up being true. The parts that were being made in the prison are, in fact, being used for the Death Star. How cool was that? Beautiful shot at the end of this episode, but they might have thrown that in there because there wasn't a whole lot else that I guess was really I don't know, engaging, that we were, really invested in. Um, this episode I mentioned earlier, the drama was sort of elsewhere. The funeral was the big tension part, and that was all done really well. I love the build up. I love how the tension is building from beginning of this episode all the way into the fight, and I do love the fight. It was actually quite I don't know, emotional in a lot of ways because of how it was done. I didn't expect to see a hologram of Marva sort of egging everybody to take on the Empire, but that was a really cool way that they did that. And I feel like the showrunners, the writers, Tony Gilroy, if he wants to, he can sort of use this in season two as the catalyst for igniting a bigger fire under the rebellion, a bigger spark for hope. And I think also this is mainly to help Cassian um, commit to the cause, right? That's what this episode is about. Cassian's always been really on the fence about how involved he wants to get with um, this rebellion, and whether it's even important or whether it's even possible for them to accomplish anything. But in this episode, we see him fully commit. He tells Luthen at the end, "You can kill me, or you can take me in." And yeah, that was really cool. Maddie, what really worked for you in this episode?
I really liked the tension of the scene as well. I liked using, her sort of telling the story of Ferrix as also kind of telling the story of the galaxy, the disease that is the Empire. Again, we talked a little bit about this kind of pre-show, but I'm surprised the Empire kind of let it go on as long as they did. Um, and then even once the fighting started, the fighting kind of happened a little bit weird for me, honestly, throughout that scene. Though, I mean, the stormtroopers, some of them are shooting people, some of them aren't. Um, but it was good. I liked the tension throughout that scene. I liked the ending part with Luthen, where he kind of has the chance to, get Andor, but it's clear that Andor has been inspired by that speech too. And then, of course, we did have that a different kind of tension again between Miro and Cyril, which I think that I was expecting a kiss there. Was anybody else expecting a kiss?
Yeah, I was.
It, it looked
It was
it looked possible.
it was looking, getting weird. Yeah.
Yeah. I was expecting a kiss there. But yeah, overall the episode was good. I really do love if Cassian, because he's so really about himself for a lot of the series, except for when it comes to a few people like his mom and Bix especially. So I liked him, getting Bix out of there and helping her. But again, it was kind of a bit flat, to be honest with you. It was okay. I don't really know. I just finished watching it, so I'm just still kind of processing it.
One of the coolest moments, and Daniel, I'll get to you next, but so it's the tradition that they actually cremate the bodies, right? And they put them into these bricks, and they put these bricks into like the streets and the buildings and whatnot. So Marva's remains are built into this brick, and I think he actually uses it to like strike first and hit
Hmm.
one of the Empire troopers or soldiers. And I'm like, there you go. She's actually involved in the fight, and that was that was
Yeah,
pretty
And the brick
funny.
held up too. I looked
yeah.
at that too, and I was like, "Oh, he broke the brick." And then he's all like, "It's fine."
And then shortly after that, though, we had another, and we complained about this in Kenobi. too. And I'm not going to take up a lot of time here, but we had just a normal guy without a helmet headbutting a stormtrooper and knocking him out.
I saw that.
Like,
It's all about the form. It's all about the form. I can't see a headbutt and not think of. I want to say it's Father's Day with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal.
oh
It's
yeah,
a 20-year-old movie or 25-year-old movie, but in there, Robin is it Rob? No, it's actually Billy Crystal, who's like it's all about like the angle and it's all about your back and like Robin Williams just starts like headbutting people at a concert like nonstop after that. It's one of the funniest moments in like cinema history. Uh, Daniel, what really worked for you in this episode?
The pacing was a lot better.
There you go.
There's been a lot of discussion like Tony Gilroy can write a good show, but he can't write a good Star Wars show. And I'm starting to realize that we don't need that right now because like we're just in this, how do I say it? Like we're in like the real like beginning stages of inspiring rebellion. And that's kind of like big. So like after that Luthen monologue is when it kind of started to change for me. As far as like, am I watching a Star Wars show? Or am I just watching a good, psychological thriller
Yeah,
espionage show? And I think that's where it doesn't matter anymore because the point of this show is what is sparking the rebellion, what is causing these people to go out, risk their lives, with bricks and rocks against blasters and death stars and stuff like that. What is the motivation there? And you're starting to, I think, with Marva's speech as well, which was really good. That's what I'm starting to realize. Like this is not necessarily a show about Andor either. This is a show about the rebellion, which we really haven't gotten too much. We have gotten, the heist movie with Rogue One. We've gotten the Jedi movies, but where the rebels are there, but really, like it's either Luke or Rey saving, the universe rather than the rebellion. Where I think here we're focusing on some better things. I did enjoy. I think the fight scene was a lot better, or the melee. I don't know what you want to call it. The melee scene was a lot better than what we got. Just kind of the feeling of it and all the people that were involved in uh, going against the Empire. I do see Matt's point of like, why did the Empire just like why was it inconsistent fighting? And I think it was because like their leaders were all down. The lady, I always forget her name. She's kind of a
Mira.
creepy
Deidre,
Empire leader. Yes, Deidre. She's kind of creepy, dude. Like she like in a weird way.
in a
Um,
good way. In a good way.
I don't know. I mean, definitely obsessed is what I can say. It's weird. Her and Cyril's interactions are very, very, very strange. And I can't say that I don't want to watch, but it's kind of like, yeah.
Well,
But go ahead, Matt.
no, I was just gonna say I agree too. It's like I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Netflix show Love on a Spectrum, um, but whenever these two are together, it's a lot like that. It's like there's two like autistic almost people who are just like really obsessed on this one particular thing, and they don't have good social skills, uh, and the tension between them is like cringe almost.
It's just weird because it's like they're captivated with one another, but they almost look disgusted with one another at the same time. It's really weird, but overall, I think the show was good. Like I said, it felt like more like a mid-season finale.
Yeah.
My initial reactions were like, I'm not really impressed, but I wasn't really impressed with the last episode either. Because for me, like if you're going to season finale, you like that the pendulate. I forget how you say the word correctly. Pendulate, whatever,
Penultimate.
pentuliment, whatever. Uh,
Penultimate.
yeah, that's usually where I feel like most of the stuff happens, and then the season finale is wrapping it up, and then possibly setting it up for a season two, right? And maybe ending you on a cliffhanger. This I think would have been better in that place, and maybe having the next episode kind of lead us to where we're going. But I'm okay with it because I know we're getting a season two. So if like had I not known we're getting a season two, I think I would have been pretty angry. But that the last scene, I don't know if you're willing to talk about the last scene now, but the last scene was just I don't know where Andor was going with it. Um and because it didn't seem calculated, with his interaction with Luthen, like you choose, but at the same time, it really seemed like we know he's not going to die,
Right.
but did he know like he was not going to die? Because he seemed pretty confident that he didn't think he was going to die, and then at the same time, we are getting the answer from the beginning of the season is like what is the catalyst that takes Andor from living on this line of good and bad to being full on the rebellion. And I think we can answer that now with
Yeah.
his mom's Marva's death. Is this is what she wanted. He could obviously hear her. We were being insinuated that he could hear the speech from wherever he was at. And this is what she wanted, and this is what she wanted for him, and especially like with her last words to the friend, I forget his name, that he delivered to her in the alleyway, which were very like, you will be unstoppable once you put these two sides of your personality together.
Yep.
So I think he took that as a continue what I wanted to continue, but I couldn't,
Yeah.
So I'm still like kind of for the rebellion itself with me, or at least the sect of it with Luthen. Um, I feel like there was a lot of moving parts that I wasn't necessarily getting. Um, Things were seem insinuated that I didn't understand why were. When that lady, I forget her name, the little one that's been, or not the younger one that's been watching.
Vel,
Um, is that Vel? She's
the
been
blonde.
watching the Phoenix, the Marva the entire time.
Yeah.
When she like stabbed the guy in the alley, we're meant to think
Oh,
like,
that
ooh,
was her friend. Yeah.
this was a big deal, but it didn't really seem like a big deal. Like, why was it a big deal? Like just kind of these different moving parts that were kind of strange to me. Also, the guy that asked to be arrested confused me. I was getting that he was a spy, but it didn't really say that, and I don't know. It kind of fell short for me on those ends. But otherwise, I do, like I said, I'll echo it again. It was a good episode. Left me wanting more. Felt like a mid-season finale. Kind of curious where they're going to go from there. And I do have some speculations, if we can talk about those at the end, about all right, B2SO, is that his
Absolutely.
name? So the droid.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. We'll get to those for sure.
and yeah, and I think I know where you're heading with that
Yeah.
legacy for sure. But the another part that this because we keep talking about Marva's speech, but I really liked. I guess they have audiobooks now in Star Wars, but he was listening to. I believe it was Arvel was the character that got smashed by the coins when they were trying to escape it. He was like writing this sort of like manifesto or like
Yeah.
this book about why to rebel. So I really liked that sequence in the beginning of this episode as well. And it really did kind of show for Diego Luna in his sort of transition through this character that inspired him losing that friend senselessly due to his hands kind of taking off too fast. And but all his thoughts on the rebellion and how that aligned with his mother's thoughts at the end, it did sort of tie in really poetically for me as to why he ended up in that ship with Luthen at the end, saying, "Hey, this is my calling, this is my cause."
And the
There you
manifesto,
go.
they kept on saying, "Remember, remember, remember." Like that was the pattern throughout the entire manifesto.
Mhm. But it was great. So I mean, it's funny because when sometimes I go through these episodes, I'm like, I really didn't like it that much. But then I start pointing out things that I did like, and I'm like, you know what, it was pretty good.
Let's see here. Vel, I mentioned this before we started. I don't even know why Vel's here. She didn't have a whole lot to do, and I suppose the only thing that would have maybe worked a little bit better for me is if you had Vel and Luthen finding Cassian, or Cassian finding them and trying to figure out like what are they going to do. I thought for a second maybe Luthen would change his mind, but Vel wouldn't, and then Luthen would have to sort of turn on Vel in a way, not necessarily kill her, but just we know Andian walks out of here. The Empire's not going to get him, or at least we didn't think he would, and we know that Vel and Luthen weren't going to kill him. So I was trying to figure out, how this was gonna turn out in a satisfying way. And yeah, so Val, I'm not really sure what else she could have done. Maybe got into the fight with the ISB and the Empire. That would have been kind of cooler if she would have maybe partaked a little bit. But yeah, no, we don't get anything like that. So
I feel
it
like
is
this
very
whole
interesting.
I feel like this whole episode was like eating half of your second favorite burger. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what it was. Like we didn't quite get to finish it, and it was okay, but it was kind of weird. And I said, like you said, like it's just why are certain things going on? I think my complaint of the last probably since the prison arc is like we're not getting a lot of in Andor. Like the prison scenes are maybe a minute at a piece, and then it moves on to Mon Mothma, and it moves on to Luthen, and moves on to Vel or whoever or Deidre. But there's not a lot of Andor, and that's why I was kind of hoping like, oh, well, once he gets out of prison, we'll get more Andor, And then the last episode, not this one, but the last one, Andor was in it maybe 5 minutes. Like there was not anything. He got caught, had that weird interaction with those big belly, weird looking dudes, and then at the end he was just like, we gotta tell somebody, and he finds out his mom died. Like that's all we got for last episode for Andor. This one was a little bit better because Andor was more in it, but it was kind of cutting to him and then the other characters. It was a lot less Mon Mothma in this one, but because everybody was kind of in the same spot, but he was not with the rest of the cast. He was off doing his own thing, so it was kind
Yeah.
of strange. But yeah, I don't. It feels like that's why I'm saying it feels like it doesn't feel like we're getting like we're in the middle of a story. Like I don't feel like we're at the end of an arc right now.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
and the only characters that we care about is, I mean, from the beginning was Mon Mothma and Andor, and they've left us kind of hanging on those two characters for the past couple episodes, and then we see that she actually does take this. I guess it wasn't a betrothal, but she did actually do the meeting of the son and the guy who was supposed to move the finances for her. I wanted to see kind of what stresses kind of got her to the point of saying, "Actually, I have to do this terrible thing in order to keep the rebellion alive." So I agree; those two characters are what Star Wars people care about as far as the story goes. Is Mon Mothma and Andor. So I
This
don't
show
know.
has made me care about Luthen though. Like I want to.
Oh yeah, for
Like
sure. Yeah,
that dude
Luthen's
is
a badass.
oh
that
yeah,
dude's
for sure.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Luthen, we didn't talk about episode 11 thoroughly. So that last scene, escaping the ISB,
Oh
handling
yeah,
those TIE fighters,
that was
one of the
dope.
coolest things seen in any Star Wars project. Just the complete um, the complete confidence he showed. Just like, I'm fine, not worried at all. I'm gonna handle these two. I'll be out of here lickety split. And just the precision of his attacks and everything, just awesome, totally awesome. Loved it.
And what was the technology though for those lasers? I mean, was that Kyber? Was that
I
like
was I
basically
was
like
feeling like that was
two?
Kyber. Yeah.
Because I mean, it cut through those ships like only like something made with Kyber could. And so that was interesting. I mean, maybe it was just a really high power laser, but to just saw a spaceship in half. I mean,
Well,
that's
we've been told to hold the laser, you need to have Kyber. You have to have
yeah,
that Kyber crystal, and we know he's had the Kyber crystals from the first episode, where
yeah.
he gave it to Andor. And I'm assuming I don't. They haven't really said. I might remember a moment, but Andor gave it to Vel to give it back to Luthen. So
Which is
he's supposed to have the Kyber crystal, and it's a big one too. So
it's
not.
badass. I mean,
So
that's
it
that's
might,
cool technology.
yeah, it might be enough to do that little. I don't know. It was almost like kind of like a weird Fast and Furious on your car. Like just pulls out spikes and just like start spinning
Yeah.
and do that. It also
I
reminded me
like
of
it.
Iron Man. You remember when Iron Man 2? When he's
Oh yeah.
just like it's a one off.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah, I remember that. It might have been better if they would have not called this season one, season two. Maybe they should have just called it Andor Part One,
yeah.
Andor Part Two. We know we're only getting 24 episodes. Call it Part One, call it Part Two, because yeah, as a standalone season, the ending does fall a little flat for all of us. I think we're all saying the same thing. Um, or maybe Cassian should have had more of a challenge to rescue Bix. Um, I'm not sure, but I'm glad Bix is safe. Glad we'll see her hopefully next season. Um, yeah, let's theorize what we're gonna get next season. Honestly, I expect Andor to sort of go from where he's at now to take more of a leadership role within the rebellion. Maybe by the end of season two, he's full on replacing Luthen. That could be a thing for his character arc. Is we're starting at the bottom of this cause, but he may actually control it at one point in time, and it may be from necessity. Luthen might not make it out of season two, and that could be very much a possibility. So I'm really interested to see how Cassian progresses from the beginning of or the end of right now season one, and where he's going to end up by the end of season two. I think that's going to be kind of the big key thing. Also, season two is supposed to be a pretty big jump right in the future. So we actually may get farther down the line of the rebellion. It may be more established. It may be a larger um, organized group by the time that we get back to season two, because they're supposed to start jumping the timeline pretty far next season. So expect maybe a House of the Dragon type storytelling where we will be pushing the timeline and the story forward pretty drastically. Maddie B, theories, expectations for season two.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to get a little bit of Alderaan in season two, because if especially with the jump going on here, and we all know, Alderaan was a pretty big hub for um, rebel activity. If especially because if we do make a jump here and Andor's making his way through the rebellion, there's going to be some leadership meetings, I would assume, that we're going to see in season two. And I know that Tony Gilroy wants to stay away from fan service, so I don't think that we're going to get a CG Carrie Fisher by any means. But I wonder if we'll kind of deal with a little bit of that. And the actor who played what was her dad's name again? Why am I blanking on this? Her adopted father.
Jimmy Smits.
Um, yeah, is that the actor's name?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So he's age appropriate for it too. We just saw him in Kenobi as well. So um, I wouldn't put it past him to see him. That wouldn't be too fan servicey, I would assume. I wonder if we're going to deal with a little bit more into the Empire as well. We keep hearing whispers of the Emperor. I wonder if we're going to kind of see a little bit more of that as well. But again, there's only so much to theorize because we kind of know how it goes. So I'd like to kind of see that. Um, I'd like to see some of the politics involved as we get closer to the destruction of the Death Star.
real quick, just to touch on something you mentioned. Should we expect to see some version of Princess Leia? Because I mean, she is full on involved with the rebellion by A New Hope, right? So we kind of have to see a little bit of how, not necessarily her origins of how she gets involved, but at least like how they contact her, or her messaging back and forth. Like she needs to be completely involved by the end of season two of Andor, because Andor leads like directly into Rogue One, and Princess Leia is like fully involved with everything by Rogue One. So
That's
there
why I think we'll
should
see
be
Bail
some
Organa.
references or something.
That's why I think we'll see Bail Organa at least.
I'm gonna call at least a hologram. At least a hologram, Princess Leia.
Okay, yeah.
Daniel, theories. Where should we expect? What should we expect to see in season two?
Well, I agree with you. If the time jump is happening, so I think we're already starting year two in the 5 years before of uh so we get to Rogue One, because we know he was the Aldani thing took like a month about, and then we know he was out doing his thing for a little bit, and then he was in prison for at least 6 months, is what we
Hmm.
were getting. So we should be already be like, I'm thinking like this episode we're starting year two. Or this has been a full year since this all started. So if we take another time jump, that my thought was maybe they're going to try to do 5 seasons of this, but if they're just going to limit it to 2 seasons, then yeah, that makes sense. So we should be getting to like the 2.5 point, where he's fully indoctrinated into the rebellion. Which would kind of line up where Princess Leia was in Rebels, because she was in season 3 of Rebels. And she was already like, she was in Rebels, she was dropping off a ship to the rebellion, and they were trying to do it under the radar, while the Empire was watching. So she was already doing rebellion stuff, and we were getting the sense that that was like at least a couple of years before A New Hope. So I think I like echoing kind of what Ted or you and Maddie B said, was that we should probably see some leadership meetings. I wouldn't be surprised to see like Leia in a holographic form, uh, or seeing how Mon Mothma starts to take a more um, uh, being the face of the rebellion, for where she's going more public, I guess more is best to say, going more public that she's a rebel, because that happened around like season 2 and season 3 of Rebels as well. And then obviously, we know Ahsoka is coming down the pipeline soon, where they're going to have a lot, Sabine Wren, we're having Ezra Bridger. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some versions of some characters from that show kind of interact. I know he's just saying not fan service. Doesn't need to be Kanan. It doesn't need to be Sabine. It doesn't even need to be Ahsoka. But there was a lot of characters that in Rebels that they intertwined, that they introduced, like Agent Callus, who eventually became a spy for the Empire, for the Rebellion, while he was working in the Empire. And lastly, I didn't realize the name of that droid until today, which was, his name is B2 Emo, or Emo, not for how they say it. I know it looks like emo, and I was like, well, he is kind of emo when I kind of think about it. But I think we're gonna see some kind of like how that droid became part of the Falcon in Han Solo. We
Yeah,
might see some his personality, or parts of him become B2SO in his reprogramming of the Imperial droid. So we're gonna have to get there eventually.
I
Yeah,
like that idea. I like that idea.
like transfer the consciousness into
Yeah.
that, and that could be part of that refurbishment process that we know that B2 went through. So I totally agree with you there. I think that that has to happen. And again, I don't think it's too fan servicey to go down the road of getting some of those characters that are intertwined. I mean, we got Saul Guerrera again, and so
He's got to be
um,
back next year,
yeah, and
next
so
season.
if they're going down that road, I mean, if they're going to tell the story the right way, in my opinion, they're going to have to incorporate some of these characters, even if it's just a name or mentioning or a hologram or something. They're going to have to be involved at some point, I would assume.
Speaking of Tony mentioning no Easter eggs, we got a Canto Bite reference. I didn't expect
Oh,
any sequel stuff to be mentioned in this series, or any series really. I thought like they just want to forget about the sequels ever happening. But a Canto Bite reference, which is from episode 8.
the worst scene
Um,
ever in cinema. Yeah.
yeah,
It was weird. That whole sequence was unneeded.
I think it's only to show us that
I
there's
feel
a
like it was almost
spy.
to Benicio del Toro, but they didn't even really use
Oh,
Benicio
you're
del
talking
Toro.
about no.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Oh, I was talking about this scene. I was talking about this show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that whole argument between the husband and wife is just to tell us that there's a spy on them. Like I really don't even know if he's actually telling the truth, or whether or not we need to care what they're fighting about. I guess it could have been about anything.
Well, I guess they
And
confirmed about the driver being a spy.
yeah, no, that's my point. But I feel like it should have been maybe something, but a bit lesser of a discussion between them,
Yeah.
because it felt like the discussion was important. And so we're like, ooh, he's gambling. Ooh, where are these funds coming from? Ooh, is he getting money from a loan shark or something like that? But instead, it's just like, no, no, no. It's just that there's a spy. Nothing else really matters about what they were talking about, or at least that's what we're expecting. So that was a little interesting. Since they ended this entire first season with this glorious shot of the Death Star, almost being fully operational, I want to say we should probably get something else regarding the Death Star, or else it's just a great reference on what they were building, but it should be something else, maybe that they lead to or discuss. They obviously can't break it, but the plans are the entire focus of Rogue One, right? So they have to maybe learn about the plans in season two. That could be a thing. Like a planet killer's already been kind of name dropped in this first season. That was interesting. So maybe in season two, somebody has to find out that there are plans and how to
Or
get a
somebody
hold
Maybe
of them.
sees it. Or somebody
well,
sees it.
or
You
maybe
know.
we get Galen Urso as a little
Ooh.
cameo.
That,
Or I mean, I don't think that's a lot of fan service for Galen Urso to show up. You know, we need to.
absolutely.
I need this to complete the Death Star, or whatever.
It
I
could
even go
even
I
back
guess
be.
when
and
I consider fan service, like it's like I'm thinking like Ahsoka showing up, or like like that's or Luke Skywalker making an appearance, or Boba Fett or some like a big name. So that's what when they say fan service, I consider that fan service, But seeing like the supporting characters like Galen Erso or something like that along those lines that people may not know so much, but like they're recognizable at the same time. But it seems like he would be so integral to this part, especially with the Death Star, and we can't ignore. I think this show is going to be intertwined around the Death Star, definitely. If this show is going to be called Andor, because essentially the destruction of the Death Star is because of him and Jyn Erso. So this is his destiny. This is his end game. So um, there's got to be more around it. Even if it's more like they're starting to learn that there's something, because obviously the beginning of Rogue One, they know there's something going on and they're trying to figure it out.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, that was our thoughts on the Andor finale. If you're watching this right now, or if you're listening to this on podcast, we want to hear from you guys. Drop your thoughts in the comments, or you can always email us on the contact page of our website at www.countdowncitygeekcast.com. One last thing to discuss, and it was a big headline over the weekend. A changing of the guard. Bob Chapek is out, and this actually is that his name? Bob Chapek.
Uh,
Yeah. Bob
yeah,
Iger and Bob Chapek.
They're
yeah.
both Bobs. I don't know
Yeah.
why I never caught that before. Bob Iger
Yeah.
has returned, the return of the Jedi, if you will, and I think some general vague statement was released regarding the board feeling this was the best decision during this time, and I'm like, it sounds like a cop out, but want to hear your guys' thoughts. What might this mean for Disney? I feel like on the Marvel side of things, like things are actually kind of fine. The plans are in place. Nothing's being changed. Nothing's being altered. On the Star Wars side of things, everything's going well with their series. They're getting a lot of talk and engagement. The movies seem to be the biggest concern that we haven't had anything in theaters for a bit amount of time, which they always talked about, like churning these movies out and making a guaranteed $1 billion each time one drops. But your guys' thoughts on this announcement, Maddie? We'll start with you.
Um, I don't know. It's one of those things where in these corporate structures, because Disney is not the magical kingdom. This is a very high powered money making machine. It's a conglomerate, it's a corporation. And I don't know if any of this has anything to do with content at all. It's just, and they said they reported losses, which, I mean, what does that even mean? Disney's never lost any money. Let me be very clear there. They're not making enough money, is what they're concerned about, which is crazy to me. Having just got back from Disneyland, I had a free trip and still spent $1,000. So, I mean, it's more corporate greed. Is what it sounds like to me. And there may have been some bad blood there from being released before, and a little bit of vengeance and coming back. But there is a little bit of political stuff in here too. There is the whole get woke, go broke scenario sometimes, and Disney seems to have alienated a large group of people who were giving them money at one point, which is why um, they may be suffering from some losses. So it just seems like corporate bullshit to me, to be honest with you. And I don't know if it's actually going to change anything. Yeah, hopefully, Kathleen Kennedy gets the axe too, and then I'll be really happy. But until something like that happens more on the content side, I don't care how much money they make or who they have in charge of
That'd be interesting.
it.
I just read this headline, and I don't know if it's true or not, but 3 days ago, it says Bob Iger just sent a company-wide email telling all employees to print out their 10 best pages of scripts and bring them to the 15th floor of Disney HQ by 1 a.m. for review. And this is from a reporter for Inside Elections
Does that
that
include the
dropped
guy that's
this.
in the goofy suit?
Not really sure, but yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. If that's true, um, I don't know. We'll see. Daniel, your thoughts on this huge announcement? Bob Iger returning.
Well, it is huge. My thing is, I don't think Bob Chapek has been there long enough to be blamed for anything necessarily. A lot of the stuff that he was dealing with was like dealing with the stuff that Bob Iger had been dealing with when he left. So, like Matty B said, like I don't think this really has to do with content wise. And if you want to talk content, then everything's the same. Than when Bob Iger left. Star Wars on Disney Plus is doing better. Disney Plus is doing better. The Marvel thing is moving along. Kevin Feige's in charge. That's fine. If you're talking about the parks, which has been an issue, I think, with Disney because less people are going to the parks because prices were raised. Well, I mean, I guess Chapek can be blamed for that, but Bob Iger had put those into place to happen when Bob Chapek was going to take over. So my understanding is that Chapek was just maintaining everything that Iger was doing, and now we're just doing that. Now, if we're talking failures, we can, talk about, Iger was in charge when Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker came out. So why isn't he being blamed for those things? This is kind of weird. I don't know if, Matty B's comment about go woke, go broke. I don't necessarily think that has to do with anything, as far as the money wise. I think a lot of the issues is Disney going to stay in Florida? Is Disney going to get the rights to all rights to their characters that they have purchased billions of dollars for? Because everything, as far as Disney loses money on every single thing that it does, except for the parks. The parks makes up for the money that they lose for, Disney Plus, that they lose for the movies, they lose for merchandise. They lose money all over the board, everywhere. The parks is what makes it up because they essentially own a city. What it is that is Disney World. Disney World is an actual jurisdictional city. So with those issues being in Florida right now, I think that's what's going on. And are they going to continue receiving the incentives that they've been receiving since the 1950s? Whether that's corporate greed, I don't know. These were the agreements that were made between Florida and the Walt Disney Company back in the day, so that this brings in, and it's mutually beneficial. It brings in money to the airports, brings in money to the hotels, the the service industry, and it provides, I mean, what, hundreds of thousands of jobs in a local area. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if things will get better. I know I've seen a lot of content from like people who work at the Disney parks saying that they're happy that Bob Iger's in charge. I don't know if that by things they consider things better when Bob Iger was in charge. I mean, that's just obviously that's their opinion,
Yeah.
but it's really weird. I don't know what people should expect differently because all the same people are still in charge of their divisions except for Bob Iger and Bob Chapek. They like honestly, what more do they do than like direction? So
It,
I don't
it
know.
feels like an to me, which I'm not looking at the net profit losses of Disney by any means, but it does feel like an overreaction to perhaps only making $100 billion instead of $102 billion, however much money they're making. It's definitely not a woke thing, and because Bob Iger has like expressed issues regarding stuff like the "Don't Say Gay" Florida law. Like he came out right away and talked about how sort of displeased he was that that was coming up. But it, I don't know. Perhaps they're just gonna
Maybe
feel
they
more
just didn't
confident.
like Chapek like in the board meetings. It could be a personal thing, as
It
well.
it could be that, but you mentioned the price hikes with the parks. There probably has seen a bigger hit with regards to revenue coming in through the parks. I would say that's probably something that Bob Iger has also been vocal about. He thought that was something that was going in the wrong direction, and perhaps enough people listened that were
Yeah.
making money or sat on the
But
board at Disney.
that's exactly why I still think there is kind of a get woke thing here because there's another way to lose money, and that's having to pay money you didn't have to pay before. So Bob Chapek, in their opinion, and some of them at Disney who really just care about the money, are maybe a little pissed off that they got involved with that. Florida is, we just saw in the elections, has turned into a more of a conservative state. It just turned red, and DeSantis is taking away all of those tax incentives that they had. That is billions of dollars in tax revenue that they are now having to pay to the state of Florida that they weren't having to pay before. So they may have been pissed that they got in that fray to begin with.
But
And so they're like,
that
Yeah.
was Iger though.
Yeah, that was Iger. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, that's what I mean. So,
Oh.
I just got them flipped up. So, but you know what I'm saying. So they're like, well, hell. So we got to get something new in here, and we're gonna have to try to work because I bet there's huge meetings between Disney and the government of Florida all the time,
Yes,
and
there is. Yeah.
so they need to bring in a familiar face to some of these older politicians. They are someone who they did good business with before, and hoping to try to curb some of this. Um, Taxes coming down from the governor's office there in Florida,
Well,
and
Yeah.
so
Florida's got to decide what they want more. Do they want tax incentives and to worry about this their ideological, which they feel is wrong, which most of the country or most of the modern generation don't really care much about, whether like they see two females on screen or that are together or whatever. Honestly, I feel like most of the audiences just don't like, okay, like I see that in real life, so that's not a big deal. But Florida needs to understand if they're going to lose, they're going to not support Disney anymore, which I understand corporate greed. They are not paying taxes, they're getting the incentives and stuff like that, but they also are providing a whole economic stability in that Florida area, and Florida needs to be prepared if they're not going to incentivize Disney to stay there, then Disney's going to leave.
Yeah.
And
can they?
Tens
But
of
can
thousands.
Disney
and I
leave?
think that's the question
I
is
don't think they can.
how rooted Disney is. But when I look at Disney and I say, will they be able to buy that much amount of land in, that they bought in the 1950s or whatever, the 1940s, 30s to build Disney World and to grow? Maybe, maybe not, but maybe they break it up. Maybe they change their way. But the thing is, you're not, if you're not welcome, you're not going to stay. And Florida needs to understand that if we're not going to welcome them here and we're not going to give them reason to stay here, then we need to prepare for them to um, leave. And there's other issues beyond that as well, is that Disney pays for its whole infrastructure. That includes water, trash, all utilities, electric. They have their own power generator. They feed them. They grow and feed themselves. So then they also need to. Florida needs to understand that they're going to have to be taking that over. Now, corporate greed, yes, yes, it's all corporate greed. It's right, and it's all political greed. It's all what it is. But if you're going to blame Chapek for that, this has been going on since Iger, you
Yeah.
know? So, like, I don't think you can blame Chapek. Now, I don't know what's going on in those board meetings. I don't know how, if things are going on, but it's exactly the same as when Chapek, if anything, it's just not in the media as much right now, those issues that were going on. So I actually give Chapek props for that, because that was like a major contention and people were making a bigger deal of it back then. So I don't know. I don't think that this changes the direction of Disney. The direction of Disney is to pump out media, to focus on their parks, to expand, to grow, and to grow profit over net profit year over year, or quarterly. Really supposed to be quarter over quarter. So as long as they're doing those things, that's be great. Now I think the only reason I know Disney has profited every single quarter since what, the last like 30 years, is profited every quarter. Now, whether they got to the profit that they wanted to, maybe the question over the last 2 years, but
Yeah.
the entire country is dealing with an inflation over the last year, rise of prices, uh, rise of prices on goods, services, materials, and everything has risen, and that's going to have an effect that trickles down, obviously, to the consumer. And if the consumer doesn't have money to buy, the latest DVD that they don't, because they have Disney Plus, I mean, that's going to affect you. Or if you raise the price $20 on a ticket to the Disney parks, or a fast pass, or whatever it is, it's going to affect their decision to go, including not including travel, lodging, food, and everything else that may not even be provided by Disney. Sorry, I
And
went on a rant there. I
no, but
apologize.
it's okay. But
You're
Chapek,
all good. You're all good.
when it comes to parks too, I mean, Chapek was in from 2020 to 2022, so he dealt with the full brunt of the pandemic, which shut those parks down for
Yeah.
quite a bit. I mean, I went in 2021, and I mean, it was almost empty. You couldn't sit on a bench, you couldn't do anything, but everything still costed the same. That's for
Mhm.
sure. But yeah, I don't know if he could be blamed for the parks either, having to deal with the pandemic. So it's an interesting thing. It has to be ideological, to a point where either Bob Chapek says, um, "I'm not going to bend the knee to Florida, and I'm not going to, be nice to these guys in these meetings," or or there has to be something like that. Somebody who's in charge of something doesn't like Chapek, or Bob Chapek doesn't like the people he has to deal with as CEO. Um,
And it might just be like, personal reasons. Like, we just don't get along with this guy,
yeah,
because
yeah.
there was also reports that the board has been trying to replace him for longer than what we had known about. So, which I'm getting the sense like it's been a couple of months they've been actively trying to get rid of him.
We have an actual statement from Iger, and also some restructuring within the organization. So yesterday it was revealed that Kareem Daniel, who was the head of Disney Media and Entertainment, was let go from the company. And in a memo to the staff, Iger said that our goal is to have the new structure in place in the coming months. Without question, elements of Disney Media and Entertainment will remain, but I fundamentally believe that storytelling is what fuels this company, and it belongs at the center of how we organize our business. Design of a new structure that puts more decision making back in the hands of our creative teams and rationalizes costs. So we were debating whether or not this was kind of content related. It sounds like there is some content related stuff that he's actually doing within the company. Removing people that were probably making decisions that he felt weren't necessarily good for the company, and what those decisions were, not really sure. But definitely, it's probably it has to be something movie related. I mean, I feel like with Disney Plus,
Yeah.
they're not lacking on series. We just got Disenchanted, kind of a reboot of that franchise. We just got the Hocus Pocus stuff, a reboot of that franchise. I
We
feel
got the
like
Mighty Ducks TV show, which I love,
mine,
by the way, and we never get to talk about it.
we're not lacking on
Yeah.
any Disney Plus content, but it feels like maybe movies is just where we're lacking, and those
It's
seem to
strange
be
because
big moneymakers.
we got like Encanto, which was a really really big during the pandemic, and we got these movies that were, or what was it, the one with Tom Holland, and like these different movies that have debuted on Disney Plus rather than in theaters that have done well on Disney Plus. So I don't know, maybe it's because we're getting away from the theaters and they're focusing too much on Disney Plus. But as far as like Star Wars and Marvel, because Star Wars, I feel like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are running everything, and then Marvel is obviously Kevin Feige. So is your issue like Pixar movies and original Disney content? And that might be it, but then I don't know, because I mean, I still see kids singing Canto on the street. So, and nominated for Academy Awards.
Where's that
I
sequel? We need that sequel.
but I know
uh,
your son and or your kiddos, and or you, maybe kiddos, like that was a
yeah,
big deal, and that was just last
huge.
year.
Yeah, for sure. We have Gunner in the chat. Gunner says, "Hello, boys, and happy early Thanksgiving." Same to
Happy
you, Gunner.
Thanksgiving to you too.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so interesting storyline. I think we'll probably see exactly what Bob means to do with future reports as well as statements that will come out from the Disney organization. He's not one to hold back when he wants people to know things. He will absolutely put out press statements regarding his plans and his move for the future. But like we all already mentioned, Marvel, they're not changing anything. They have a plan. That plan's been left alone. Star Wars with, Lucas films, it seems to be the one key area that they've been lacking, and there's been a lot of reports in the recent weeks that we've been hearing the displeasure of some folks with the lack of Star Wars content in theaters. So that's probably something that he'll focus on right away, and then just maybe additional Disney content. It sounds like he wants a big push for creative and new stories. So I think we'll probably get a bunch of things announced maybe in the next um, what are they called, the earnings meetings or the
Oh
earnings
yeah,
calls.
the investor
Those
calls.
investor calls. There you go. Those he always releases a lot of new information. So expect a ton of things maybe on the next one, whenever that may be. All right. Want to appreciate everybody for watching us. We've had a lot of shows this week. We've been doing a lot of talking. Later on this evening, catch the next episode of the Countdown City WrestleCast. They have a lot to talk about. AEW Full Gear just aired on Saturday, I believe. So they'll be recapping that, and they have some other additional events to discuss. Happy early Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope you guys enjoy it. Enjoy the time off. Um, Eat like there's no tomorrow. I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, enjoy your families. Enjoy your time. We really appreciate everybody watching, tuning in, sharing, liking, engaging, all that good stuff. For the Geekcast, my name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me on this Andor finale review is one and only Metaby.
Thanks, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. And again, don't forget to get blackout drunk tonight. Make bad decisions. Make bad decisions tonight.
There has to be a little a little line
Responsibly.
at the bottom that says Matty B is only speaking for himself and does not reflect the decisions of the group.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, man. It's all good. And then also joining us once again, always a pleasure to have him on from the Legacy Nerd. It's Daniel.
Thank you guys. Happy Thanksgiving. And to those that are going to have more than one Thanksgiving like me tomorrow, pace yourselves.
Oof. Yeah, absolutely. We'll all be in turkey comas around this time tomorrow. All right. Appreciate you guys. Take it easy.